Froggy, you know what day it is. Friday. SketchUp Live Day, baby. Because it's February 17th. And boy, do we have a heck of a show for you planned out today. Eric, you see him right there. He's going to be showing some interior design tips. We have some amazing stuff to learn. We have some maybe new things to show off in the software itself. We have a lot of fun to be had. We have a lot of great people in the chat. Where are you tuning in from? Let us know. And hey, heck, folks, let's get it started. Please welcome to the stage, Eric Sargent.
Thanks. I'm already on the stage, but I guess that's my cue
to
start.
Now.
That's my cue that I can talk now. Thanks, Matt. I'm used to introducing myself, so it feels, love it when Matt does the introductions because his energy level is always way higher than mine. It reminds me that I can just kind of push it up a little bit when I can. But you know what? I'm me, so I can't pretend to be somebody else. We're going to be doing some really cool things today, as always. I just want to start by saying thanks for, I don't know, being patient last week. I was supposed to model, but I lost my voice from being sick, and I didn't want to, hack my way through live model session. I don't think that's fun for anybody. So feeling better, feeling great, pumped, stoked, and yeah, I guess that extra week gave me some time to sort of really think about how we can do something cool this week. So
yeah, that's good to hear. I'm glad we're feeling better. I know there was a lot of support saying get well soon since we missed the stream last week. So thanks, all the good tidings helped, and now you're healthy again.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, without our YouTube audience, I probably would still be sick. So thanks for all those good wishes. Definitely came through the fiber optic network.
Yes, the antibiotics of commenters for sure.
Yeah,
so
yes. There's something to be said about the power of positive thinking, right? As opposed to taking medicine, but just this idea of, yeah, I've got my support. I've got my team behind me. Speaking of team behind me, we actually have a new team member here today. I don't know if you noticed, it's actually on this shoulder. I always point to the wrong side because it's mirrored, but on this shoulder, I want to make sure that everyone knows that we are using SketchUp 2023 today, which if you look up, yes, that's right. Yesterday was our official launch day. I know we don't give that information out in advance. I'm not in charge of that. That's just how we do it. When it comes, and yesterday was the day. So we are going to be showcasing a couple new features, but for the most part, we're just going to kind of business as usual. And But I did want to introduce Heather, which, sorry, Niraj, as much as I have loved working with you over the last few streams or the last year, you are being replaced. It's Heather and Lily. She's from our developer team. And so it's nice to have an engineer representing and also change, get some female vibes going as well. So anything you want to add to that, to our little 23 launch?
Anytime there's a cat involved, you love to see it.
Can you see the cat? Yeah, the cat's right there. That's Lily.
Zoom in on the kitty. Got to see the kitty. I should have had a meow sound effect. I'll just say meow. So
it's okay.
Cool
you can just
Lily.
You can just do it yourself. I like the ad lib sound effects. So
sure, yeah. Do a lot of Police Academy style mouth sounds today, probably. But I did want to say one other thing. Heather and Lily to me sounds like some kind of like upscale boutique.
It could
what do
be.
You think about that?
That could be a clothing store. It could be a hipster coffee. What would that be? Could be a fabric store. Yeah, it sounds cool. Heather and Lily.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Great. My wife dropped another $500 at Heather and Lily.
Oh my gosh.
But,
yeah, the and trend is still going strong. So okay. To be cognizant of time, I'll fill as much time as you give me with these live modeling sessions, as you know. So if we want to keep things, see if we can accomplish our goal, I want to do two things too. I want to say why we're doing interior design. So interior design is kind of fresh on my mind because the last campus track I launched before Basecamp, so it was a while ago because Basecamp does take a lot of our energy, but you guys do know that my primary job besides these live streams is to create the learning content, the self-paced professional level learning content on SketchUp Campus. And the last one we did was a track on interior design, and then I just kind of carried that energy into rendering. So we have one that now just wrapped up this week, and that Tyson is in the process of transferring over to Campus for rendering for interior design. So that's V-Ray for interior design. So I'm excited that we both got to cover modeling and rendering for interior design. And I just want to kind of use this stream to maybe feel like getting a sense of closure, a way to kind of celebrate some of the things that I've learned and share some of the tips and tricks that kind of came out of that course. So we'll be rendering today, but we can talk about some things about modeling for rendering, but mostly we're going to stay just in the modeling world for interior design.
That sounds great. I need closure too. We need closure. People have been calling for it.
We need closure
for this campus course. So no, that's funny. But I did drop the link in the chat, and then the link is also in the description if it goes by. So take that course. It's really cool and interesting. A lot of great stuff that we won't be able to cover today, but yeah, totally check it out. And yeah, buckle up because there's a lot of great stuff about to be coming your way pretty soon. So thanks, Eric.
It's fun. And I'll also say that I'm landscape trained, right? So that's kind of how I started using SketchUp, is bigger exterior projects. So I will say that this is a little bit fun and challenging for me because I have to think literally inside the box as opposed to outside. And I get to focus on detail as opposed to big picture, which is kind of what I'm used to doing, what my background's used to sort of, if you put a tree in or something, you just fudge it, you don't worry about it. But interior, you really think about things. How big is that? How wide? What material? What's the relationship? How does light affect it? This is kind of fun for me to be thinking way more detailed than I normally do. So
getting into the scritty-pulity of everything.
Yes. So that said, I pulled up behind me. I think unless you have anything else you want to say, Matt, to kick us off, I'm ready to shrink my head and go through sort of the inspiration for not just the campus course, but also for today's stream and just a little bit of background context, and then we'll dive into modeling.
Bring on the shrunken head.
All right. I wish there was more of a shrinking sound effect, but I think that we'll go with that. Okay. So we're going to enter into this space. For those that have taken the course, I don't want to apologize, but I will say, you're going to hear some repeating stuff. So if you have taken it, that's awesome. I'm going to high five you for that. But stay with me, because when we're doing it live, I think there's still going to be some value that we're going to have that's going to be a little bit different than when you're doing it at the self-pace. But this was sort of the inspiration behind the course. And what I was trying to do originally was find a space that kind of has a little bit of everything, as opposed to saying, oh, let's do a kitchen, and then let's jump over to a bedroom, and then let's do a roof, and then let's do ceiling. I wanted to say, let's pick one room that has a lot of stuff. And what came to mind was a co-working space. This is a WeWork in Houston. I've not been there myself, but this is kind of cool that you can virtual tour it. Because it's got, a reception desk with a cool light fixture. It's got kind of an industrial vibe. It's up high. So it's in an office, in a typical office building. So exposed concrete columns. Really cool, just kind of mix of eclectic furnishings. You can see there's sort of built-ins, sort of free-floating, and sort of maybe even, again, some custom furnishing pieces that we get to work on today.
Yeah, that's cool space for sure. Did you catch that WeWork show, the dramatized one with Jared Leto and Anne Hathaway?
No, but if you think it's good, I can add it to my list.
They're good.
They're good. Okay.
And the show's fine.
Yeah.
It's an interesting story. Yeah.
So,
sorry.
no, it's okay. It's okay. That's good. Remember, our audience wants to hear more than just what I have to say about this. So please interject as much as you need to. So anyway, I don't need to show anymore because we're actually going to model it. I just want to make sure everyone understood that, this isn't something that I just made up. It's actually something that exists in the real world. And I might come back to this because if I'm looking at something and saying, how tall is this or how big should this be? It's not just made up completely from my imagination. It's actually built on, it's an existing space. I don't know. That's how I learn. I kind of start by learning, say, let's model something that exists. And then what I do is I put that in my memory bank. And then when I go to build my own space, I think, oh, okay, it could kind of be like this, or I'm going to do it the way that I did this one. So to me, this is just good practice for when it counts.
Helps keep you grounded, so you're not. You can make anything, You could be making a spaceship interior, and then whatever the handrails could be 2 feet off the ground. Anyways.
Oh, so let's dive right into it. I'm going to pull in this reference plan that I found from online. So that's another reason why I chose this space, is that there was actually the designer who worked on it actually had shared some of the sort of process for doing the actual interior design for this space, and I thought, oh, that's kind of cool.
That's cool.
So in this case, yeah, exactly. You don't always get. Sometimes you get a photograph or something to use, but it's actually nice when you can when we have a reference.
Mm-hmm.
So for this one was just grabbed online. It does not have a scale, so I use doors. So in this case, I'm going to use the double door, and I'm going to set that at 6 feet because I'm in the United States. For those that are not in the United States, I will admit that, yes, your metric system is often better, but I'm going to stick to imperial units for this. And I also don't have
about 2 meters.
Yeah, it would be about 2 meters. That's right. But okay. So that here, thanks, Matt. You're throwing me off here.
Sorry, I'm really.
Now I'm thinking in meters, and I'm going to have to do the conversion in my head. Okay.
Oh, boy. Okay.
For those
go
that
ahead. I will refrain from interrupting you for the next 30 seconds. So
30 seconds. Great. I have 30 seconds to get this next point across. What I'm trying to say here is that I have a skill builder on working with reference images, so I won't go into too much detail, but basically so go watch that. But what I like to do is when I trace, I just kind of set up what's called a tracing style. So really quickly, you can see that I can switch back and forth between these two styles. One of them has X-ray mode on with colored edges, and one of them does not have X-ray mode on and doesn't have colored edges. And I'll tell you why. I'll show you right here as we start to begin to trace out the space. The goal here for me, this first step, is to not draw everything. We're just going to draw only what we need. And then, so I need to build the walls. So we at least need to trace the outer edges of the walls so that we have something that we can mass up that's going to create the container that then we can start to build within. So that's why I have this two tracing styles. I can add a scene, and I'm going to call this one trace, and I'm going to add another scene, and I'm going to call this one, I don't know, I'm going to call this view, although maybe that's not the best term. Matt, let me know about the comments. If anyone has any questions, please, everyone who's there, I'm not watching the comments. Matt kind of relays them for me. So if you have a question about anything that I'm doing, or you have a different way, or you've done something before, obviously chime in, and I'd love to hear. I'll try to respond. Okay, myself through Matt.
Yeah, so totally. Yeah, good reminder. Just a lot of high fives and highs from everybody in the chat so far. So yeah, thanks everybody. Totally for joining from all over the world, and let's just say a couple hellos.
Hi, 你好，欢迎你的到来。
Sorry.
E aí, tudo bem? Bonjour. Apa kabar?
आप कैसे हैं?
كيف حالك?
¿Qué pasa?
Selamat siang.
Servus, schön, dass du dabei bist.
Hello. If we missed your language, I'm sorry. Thank you for joining. But hello, and take it away, Eric.
Thanks. That was a lot of hellos. What I was going to say is I forgot to say is that when you're tracing and you click between the two views, all of a sudden I'm like working down here, and then I click on and I just want to kind of see how it's starting to look. And then all of a sudden it takes me back. So that one thing I forgot to do is come over here. One thing I like to do is come into my scenes menu. First of all, turn off scene thumbnails. And I basically will turn off camera location for both of these two scenes. And the reason why is because, and I'll show you in just a second, if I start tracing this and I say, oh, I'm working on this area, and then I pop over and I want to see what that looks like, it'll just show me really quickly. And if I come over here and start tracing over maybe this couch, if I want to build that couch, and if I check to see what that's starting to look like, that's pretty cool. I can even hide this and update that on the view scene. So when I go back between trace and view, I can very kind of quickly and easily see what I'm doing. And I'm using the X-ray mode on purpose, because if you don't use the X-ray mode and you start tracing, all of a sudden it's like, oh crap, where does that go? Where does this go? I can't see it anymore because my face is blocking it. So just a little bit of background as to why I'm doing it the way I'm doing. So now when I do this, when I go to offset, I can say, oh yeah, that offset is actually 2.5 feet. That's exactly where I want it to go. So actually I want to leave that offset because redo offset. So with tracing, on that note, with tracing, the way I think about it is that sometimes when we have a reference plan, it's too easy just to say, oh, this is here, and then this goes like that, and then this goes like up to here and there. But if I check that line measurement, if I open up my entity info, sorry, if I move panels around, it's because I just installed the SketchUp 2023 yesterday, so not everything is dialed back in. But if I check that, you can see that's 13 inches, 13 feet, 10 and a quarter inches. Now that's a size that, you know, if I was to take this to layout and put a dimension on it, that would be a weird dimension. I wouldn't actually have them cut this bookshelf. I know this is a bookshelf at that dimension. So even though unless you're in a super hurry and it's like just for a concept, what I'll do is start to draw and I'll look down at the measurements box and I'll say, hey, that actually shows that it's about 1 foot. So I'll type in 1 foot. And when I pull back, it'll say that's 1 foot 11 inches. It probably should be 2 feet. So even though it doesn't, that 2 foot doesn't line up exactly where it should on my reference image, that's okay. I'm actually going to go with the real world dimensions and not with the reference image. So in this case, it says if that's actually 13 foot 9 inches, 13 foot 9 inches, then I'll go with that. And I know that's 1 foot already. Sorry, I know that that's actually 2 foot. Yeah. Oh, what is that? What was that? Oh, and the cool thing is too, is once you've drawn a few things, once you've drawn a few lines, we can, I can also use the lines that are there now to sort of reference. So in this case, instead of drawing a new line, I'm actually just going to copy the one that's there. I'm going to look at that distance. I'm going to say that's 1 foot. And then I'm going to just kind of say, okay, I don't know if I'm going to do this whole hallway or not, probably not. And then just go from there. So Matt, while I'm drawing, this could be a good time for you to chime in, because I'm going to take a few minutes to trace just this outer edge here. And I do want to point out the fact that if for any reason I'm taking too long, I have these, because it's part of the class where we go step by step, I have these pre-built. So if for some reason it's like, you guys like, oh, I'm bored, you know, he's just tracing, like, can we speed this process up? I can always go in and pull information from like the finished model, but I don't know. I don't think it's, the goal is that that if once we're efficient with this, we can do this pretty quickly. So we look at this, we go 3.5 foot, oops, straight line, 3.5, and go from there. And what do I think that should be? 3 foot.
Yeah, that's a good tip to do. Not really trusting like your eyes, or like if it's just a concept thing, you don't have to have the exact whatever it has on the JPEG, because yeah, it just makes it easier when everything's a nice round number for sure. That's a good call out. Yeah, I'd love to. We did have a question about what is new in 23. So,
oh yeah, great question.
So there have been changes to a lot of different parts of SketchUp, including SketchUp for iPad, which got an update too. And we can talk about that in a different time. But for the core SketchUp like desktop modeler, there's a new flip command, like a kind of easier to visualize than using flip along or scaling to -1. So it kind of shows you the planes where what the geometry you select will flip around. So that's pretty nifty. For SketchUp Studio subscribers, there's an importer that will import Revit files and
super cool.
Include some of the information from, I'm trying to figure out exactly what comes over, because I think it's give me one sec, but it is Revit info and like hierarchies and stuff that gets imported as well. So yeah, that's really great. There's been updated saving, multi-threading. So saving is faster for larger models, you know, more time getting back to work and less time sitting there waiting for stuff to save.
Which I'll chime in and say that that's exciting for me, because urban design, landscape architecture, I mean, you could have two different things about large models. Large models can either be a small space with tons of polygons in it, right? That makes it big file size, big geometry. Or a model can be really big but not have tons of polygons, or both, which is, you know, file size being like I'm doing a city design and I've got 1,000 buildings and 2,000 trees. I mean, that's obviously it adds up really quick, as we all know.
Yes. And the full release notes, I just dropped a link in the chat. So peep it if you want to get into the down and dirty of all the great updates with 2023.
I'm going to do those.
We had a question about inferencing, and was that a different looking inference line? I don't know.
Nobody
exactly
called save yet, so I'm going to be the first. The inference line, does look a little bit different to me. You'll notice if I do that, it's it's auto pulling to that door there, and it's giving me a dashed line. That sort of red line right there. It's trying to say that. I don't know if that was a good catch. It does actually look different to me. I don't know if there's been a little bit of enhancements as far as what it can inference or what it's trying to auto inference, but that's something I should double check.
Yeah, it's 23 is new for us too. You just installed it today, right? So
yeah, so to be honest with you, I haven't had a chance to. I mean, I know that we do beta testing and stuff like that, but I try not to get too hung up on betas because sometimes features they obviously, that's the goal of the beta, they change and they evolve, but at the same time they so I don't want to like incorporate beta features into my training content until it's become official. So that's why in case you're wondering why I'm hanging back a little bit, because we just want to make sure that we're not showing something that isn't making it into the final. So yeah. I just want to point out, it's a great question. I think we should come back to new features, especially as when I get into furnishings. I want to make sure that I show the flip tool, which is super, super cool. I do know that our icon for the FOV has updated. So if you do use the FOV toolbar, I tend to, because it also was originally, it showed up as the zoom tool. And I think that, for me anyway, I think that visually caused a little bit of confusion. So I often go FOV to here where I change field of view. Right now I'm in ortho, so it doesn't matter. But if you do use toolbar icons, that'll make it just a little bit easier for you to change that as well.
Nice, very cool.
Yeah. So
also, I did have one note from Colin here. He says, this is maybe a little bit behind the time, but that red line is kinked. He said there's a red line that was kinked.
Did I draw a line that was kinked? Which one? Oh, what do you mean the inference line that I was trying to inference to?
It could have been the inference line. Yeah.
The inference line. The reason why is because it was trying to inference to a point lower, so that's why that line was showing up below. But as far as I know, I've drawn this all orthographic.
Okay, cool. Well, we might have a little bit bigger delay than normal today, so bear with us if you're in the chat.
I'm gonna watch myself here. Looks okay. Looks okay on my side. So
so I don't mean the audio delay. That is fixed. Everyone at the beginning noticed that the audio is sorted out, so that's a positive thing. But I think I just the added stream delay, so it's going out a little bit later than happening in real time. So if you are chatting, just know that we're a little bit behind catching up with you, but it's all in service of making the audio nice and synced.
Yes, the audio, I know that's a good point. I didn't really want to say anything because I kind of don't want to point out, our mistakes until we have to, but I do want to, I guess that's a good, we do this from home, and we have a system in the studio in Westminster that's sort of dialed in and works a little bit better. But when you do it from home, it's a little bit more challenging, I'll say that. And there's a lot of things that need to be set up a certain way. And so we are continuing to look for ways to improve the streaming process, given the fact that each person who streams has little bit differences in their home studios. So I do want to say, everyone, thanks for your patience. If there is any audio delay or there's any lag or anything, it's because we're still, fine-tuning that process for you. No, that's not for that. That's
no, it's the opposite of that. We're getting better.
All right. So I'm ready to move on here. Thank you for Matt for entertaining the troops while I just kind of traced a little bit, made sure that I had everything both. I'm drawing a little bit slower because I am drawing accurately. I'm drawing not only to scale, but I'm drawing with real world dimensions. But I have to, but at that, I think I've got enough where I can start massing some stuff up. And then again, it's not, we'll just kind of add to it as we go. I want to keep things interesting. I hope I didn't lose anybody yet saying, what is this, 2D? This is SketchUp. So at this point, you can see that where I switch back and forth between my trace and my view is kind of cool, because what it does is it shows me really quickly if I missed something. It also shows me if I needed to adjust something, or if I wanted to go back and add more detail or something like that. But for me, the starting point is to build the enclosure. And again, I say to me a lot, because when I speak especially to interior design or to rendering or something that I'm not necessarily trained in, I can do it. But I know that if I did interior design every single day, all day, the rest of my life, I would probably speak more intelligently about it. So one thing we can do is if you have lots of walls, sometimes I've found, like if you do this right here, if you click the floor and you click select invert selection, that could be a really quick way to select all your walls at once. Now, if this is coming in from CAD or something like that, sometimes what I'll do is just come in and I'll just paint. Like if I want to select things that are, there we go. If I wanted to select a bunch of different things that are on different groups, like I may, in this case, need to separate out, say, that wall. And I'll show you why, because that wall is actually a glazing wall. So I want to maybe, if you had a lot of disconnect pieces, what I've found for myself, at least in landscape, is you can right click and say select all in the same material. So because it's just my walls and floor, it's pretty easy for me to say select the floor and then say no, select everything else, except I am getting, of course, Heather, so I would have to deselect her. I would group those, but I want to show you another way to do it too, which is that if you have, if I only wanted to select my walls, I could paint them fairly quickly and then go here and say select all with the same material. And then from there, I would group it. And now what I have is my walls grouped individually. So I want to make sure that as I'm going, I'm always grouping, and I'm not too worried about these colors right now because I haven't got into colors. So it's really just saying this is this kind of wall, this is this kind of wall, this is the floor. At this point, like here in this case, I do want to grab the floor. So everything from the very beginning for me is grouped as soon as it's done. As soon as I'm done drawing it, I'll group it. And I think that's pretty typical workflow for most people. Now we got to give this.
For sure, that's cool. And actually, in your context menu, when you clicked, you saw a different change in another update to SketchUp 2023, which was you can select just the edges or just the faces. When you select geometry, you can say deselect edges, deselect faces. So that's a nifty little selection helper as well.
I haven't tried that, so it did do that. So that's sort of like a shortcut for doing like the triple click. So yeah, especially if you have a really complex shape. I know that selection toys is a popular extension, and I know that that's where you have a lot of options for selecting just, inner edges or outer edges or something like that. So thanks, Matt, for pointing that out. We've got some new selection stuff. So we'll see if we can use those. Oh yeah, okay, so that's how, right? So you select everything, and then you can come over here and say select bounding, select this, say select bounding edges, and then you can also come in here and say, actually, I don't want the face. So you can say deselect edges, deselect faces. So pretty cool. So I wanted to pull just those bounding edges over. Yeah. Awesome stuff. Awesome sauce.
And also we have a note from Jono in the chat saying this would also be a time where you could use color by axis to make sure that everything is square too, because that will make all your edges the axis colors in case you had a question about, some face not closing or something like that.
Yeah, so for those that aren't sure what he means by that, it's in the styles menu under edit. So if you wanted to color your edges, in this case, you could say by material. So depending on the material, the edges will change, and then by axis. So now I can see, it's probably easier to see if I turn actually all my colors off. This is basically if I'm drawing, if this room needs to be orthogonal, which it is, and I think most rooms are, then this would be a good way to just double check. And I could have done that while I was drawing. In fact, it probably would have been better to set up a style for when I'm tracing. But in this case, I did set my style up as pink just to contrast with the reference image that I was drawing. So good tip. Thanks.
Yeah, I dig the pink too. Yeah, thanks, Jono.
Yeah.
And
so
hi, Mad Sam Productions. Thanks for tuning in. Good to have you.
Oh,
go ahead.
I wanted to point out one more thing on the trace view here. If you you'll notice that if for me, I like to use hidden line style a lot. So if you've ever seen any of my other stuff, I'll often either view my model while I'm working and I just want to wipe out all the color, or sometimes that's my final product. I mean, I'll take something that has color and I'll create a style that's either going to sketch over or go into Photoshop, or I just take those lines and lay them over a V-Ray image or something like that. So oftentimes I will have I will work in hidden line, but you'll notice that that my image here does not fade. That's because I didn't say this when I first started, and I'm going to make a copy of this. When I brought this image in, I did not explode it. So if you don't explode it, it's an image, it's not a texture. So if I go in and take this one here and I say, I want to actually explode this one, what happens is, if I go to hidden line, that image disappears. So I've found myself is that especially if it's a reference image, I do not like my reference image disappearing. So if I need that as a texture, I'll create another version of it. But for me, I actually do like to see my textures and my hidden line styles at the same time. So pro tip.
Gotcha. So you would just kind of copy it off to the side and then explode the copy in order to keep one.
Yeah.
That you could still
I'd
reference off
probably
and then
copy
one
it.
that's the texture.
Yeah, I might copy it vertically because then you could use it as a projected texture and paint it. But either way, make a copy, explode it. That way you have both the image and you have the image texture in your same model. So just to keep going here,
Nice.
I'm going to take, I need to create the doorways. I gave my ceilings 12 foot. I'm going to say that this is a commercial space. So I'm going to give myself nice big doorways at 8 foot, which means that I need to drop essentially the ceiling down 4 foot between all of my doorways, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So there's different ways to do this. I don't know if this is the best way. In fact, it's been a while since I've done this. I'm just going to go 4 foot like this. And the reason why is because then I can come in and I can just use the push-pull tool. I do have that extra line, but that's okay. I'm gonna get rid of that. The other option is if you wanted to control it a little bit better, you could just come in here. If I just create a rectangle and then just say, oh, I want it to be 4 foot down, 8-inch wide. And then that would give you just the edge at that point. But it's okay. I'm just kind of going fast and loose here because it's live modeling and you guys are the best audience ever and you'll forgive me, which is not always true for, live webinars and some of the other things that we do for training wise.
Oh no, you are forgiven, dude, for sure. And I think it's just interesting to see, like, anybody who used SketchUp know there's 100 different ways to do the same thing. So it's cool to see different ways of doing stuff. So I would have never thought to bring that top down and then use push pull with that. So yeah,
but now you're thinking, well, way to go. What are you going to do here? For me, I felt like I don't care what the backside looks like, to be honest with you, because this is like a stage set. So even though that was faster for me to enclose those spaces. There's a few different ways to do it. If there's no doors here, like if I wanted to, I could come over here. Sorry if I'm spinning around too much. You can just grab them in groups and delete them. And but that only works like where there isn't a door, because what you don't want to do is go in and do all that work that I just did and then accidentally delete this part here, and then you'll lose your doorway. So in this case, I would probably go in and do just a manual delete around the door, and I would use the left select sort of trick to do the other areas. So you can see I'm not even worrying about the tops either, because that's not going to show. So I'm just going in and just really quickly deleting that. And I don't really like the materials. So I'm going to use an extension called Materials Tools. I'm going to remove all of the materials. So I'm working with just a raw space, if you don't mind. I ask permission a lot.
Cool. You could also use, speaking of extensions, you could use cleanup to do this stray edges.
Yes,
too.
because these are stray edges. That's right. Cleanup will do that. So in this case, it's anything that's stray. I tend to do things sort of manually a little bit, and the reason why is because if it doesn't take a long time, it's just, to me, part of the process. It's like when I do a hand drawing, it's like I have to lay the trace over, and I have to get the pen, and I have to put the drafting dots on. And some people think, oh, that's tedious. I just want to draw. It's like, it's just part of the process. So if it's a little thing, if it's a little cleanup thing, it doesn't really bother me that much. So I'm going to pull the ceiling up here. And make sure that I'm pulling this up. I want to make sure I'm going straight up. So I'm using the inference does look a little bit different. And then I'm going to give that a thickness. You'll notice I did not make a component of the floor. So when I pulled the floor up for the ceiling, I don't have to make it unique. I just pull that down, and I'm going to give the ceiling, let's just say, a 1 foot thickness, just because there's some electrical and stuff, even though it's kind of a lofty sort of space. What is going on right there? Why is that not showing?
Maybe that's where that red line problem was coming in from the other.
No, maybe it's just because I had that little notch there. And so when I pulled the floor up, another way to do that is if you have that's right. The floor does have that little notch, because remember, I put that ceiling part in afterwards, but the floor actually shows the hallway. So one way to do that is just to come over here and say intersect with model. And what it's going to do is anything that lower ceiling is touching, it's going to go ahead and just create that break line that we want. So the outside looks kind of crappy, but that's okay. This is a good point, and I'm a little different than some of the other live streamers here on this channel, and that's not a good or bad thing. It's just that I do tend to use tags and use them from the beginning. So for me, I would just, especially when I'm working on an interior design space, because I'm going to want to toggle. It's Friday, folks. I may want to toggle my walls. Where did my entity info go?
Also, I don't want to let this pass too far, but it sounds like your shots fired against some of the other Aaron and Tyson over here talking about tagging stuff. It's like, ooh, la-dee-da. Do you name your groups too, bud?
Yeah, only if I think I need to pull reports from them, meaning if I'm going to tag them in layout or if I'm going to run a report, I will tag it. But if it's something like a wall group where I know I'm not going to reference it, I do not bother to tag because it's going to be way a waste of time.
Yeah. Do you ever use Outliner? I know it's helpful in Outliner.
Yes, Outliner's amazing, but you know what Outliner does is it makes me want to spend more time in Outliner. Like Outliner is so cool, but it works only if you have that sort of like, if you really push yourself to like outline, to use it for everything. And if you're not, then it's, yeah. Then my problem is that if you start using Outliner, you got to use it. For me, I think you got to keep using it. Otherwise it's like, oh, I spent all this time getting Outliner to look awesome. And then it, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to update my trace view here. Let's go. I hope everyone's happy with where we are. There's one thing I wanted to do, and it's these window mullions. If you go back to here, I'm not going to worry too much about them. I'm just going to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Let's say there's 10 of them, and there's 2 columns. So what I want to do is make sure that I didn't lose track of those. I could treat the columns as part of the wall group, but since they actually aren't walls, they are structural columns, I don't think it's a bad idea to keep those separated. So if I'm being proper with my dimensions, I'm going to go 3 foot, 3.25 foot, which is 3 foot 3 inches. And I'm going to, in this case, make that a component because there's 2 columns. And to Matt's point, thanks for calling me out on this. I am going to call this column as a component for proper naming. And I'm going to drop that over at 28.5 foot. So remember, I'm using real world dimensions for everything, even if in reality, I don't need to do that. I could have pulled the columns up. I'm going to pull them down instead. I hope that's okay with everyone here. And now back to...
Not okay with me.
Not okay. Yes.
No, you do your thing, man.
Yeah. You know what, though?
We have some people... I don't mean to interrupt.
No.
Real quick, I would just... people in the chat are talking about Outliner. And some people don't use Outliner. Some people do. I think it's nice to visualize the hierarchy in your model. And also if you have a lot of sub, components or whatever, it's easy to jump to that geometry immediately without having to double click all the way down through. So
if you are,
but I know a lot of people use it in a lot of different ways. So there's a lot of good uses for having Outliner in order to have better organization. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, this is what not to do. So I'm drawing in my trace mode, but I had my ceiling on. So what's happening is it doesn't know whether I'm snapping to the lower point or the higher point. So I will say that was actually a good thing. There's a book that I have. It's it's a Berenstain Bears book I read to my kids. And it's called The Bike Lesson. And the dad screws up the entire time and he says, this is what not to do. So when I do something that doesn't work, that's because I'm telling you what not to do on purpose. Thank you. So that basically was a reminder for me that as I go back into my trace mode, if I'm going back and forth between now 3D and 2D, I maybe want to start toggling off some of those tags like the walls and the ceiling, because otherwise I'm going to accidentally snap to that. So I want to go in. I'm not worried about the mullion sizing right now. I'm just going to make that a component, and I'm going to array this. 2 types of arrays. Actually, I'm going to pull this one all the way over to here because I want to start my mullion on that side. And then I want to grab this here. There's 2 kinds of arrays we can do. We can say, oh, I want this to be 6 feet, and then I want 10 of these. Or the opposite is I actually want to stop my mullion here. And then I want to pull back, and I want to say, I want to use the divide on the keyboard. And then I want to say divide by, I don't know, what do we say, 10? 10. Oh, speaking of divide, keyboard, I do have a thing called Keycaster, which sometimes is helpful. I don't know with people in the audience if it helps, but if I type in the H, you can see the, hi mom. You can see it now. Some people like that, some people don't. So I'm going to go ahead and turn that on. Sorry if I didn't turn that on before. So.
Oh, good. No, that's helpful. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks for reminding myself. But next time, people in the chat, feel free to call me out on that. So we're doing pretty well here on time. You know, my OCD, it bugs me that like these center columns in the mullions aren't like, you know what I mean? The column isn't centered on it, but that's the kind of fun thing that you have to get over, because at this point it's, you know what I mean? Like when you're building stuff, no one's going to notice those things. So it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. This is also what I talked about, where if you want to see that line, you can see that it doesn't show up here, because what I did is I have a component going through a group. So if I wanted that line to show up, I could come into this group component, select everything, and say intersect faces with model. And what it's going to do is it's going to go ahead and just create an edge there. And I don't technically need this one here. So if I did want to pull that back down, I can, but I don't know. Looks kind of cool from the outside if I wanted to have it like that. I do switch back and forth between perspective and ortho. So for those that, if that bugs people, too bad. No, I'm just kidding. I'll also go back and check from time to time using my color by tags. So as I go, if I wanted to do something like for columns, and I'm going to try not to be too anal retentive about this today, because just to keep things moving quicker. So what I would do is I come over here and say select all instances. So it selects all of my mullions at once. And then I come over here and put those on my, oh, I didn't create a mullions one. And if I spelled it wrong, that's because I have, that's how I roll. Okay, so those columns, same thing. Those are components, which is really cool. I can select all instances and I can go ahead and drop those onto my columns tag. And yeah, I'm staying organized as I go, which is, you know, what I try to do. So I'm going to save that. This is a good point to save it. Is there anything before? I'm going to move into furnishings right now, because this is really all we need for the structure. We need, from here on out, you might think of doors and windows and stuff as structure, but also you could think of a door as a furnishing, really, if you think about buying one off the shelf and speccing it. But so the next part of the process for me is going to be to bring in some CAD blocks. And what we're going to do is we're going to place the CAD blocks over where they belong over in the plan. So we'll pop back over to our trace view. And in this case, now that I have a 3D element, which is the mullions, I'm actually going to pull those off, and I'm going to pull columns off. And I'm going to take this little ledger, and I'm actually going to put that onto our walls. It's going to be part of our walls. So you can notice when I'm in my trace view, when I'm tracing, I don't have any of my 3D stuff. All my 3D tags are off. And then when I go to view it, they're back on. So just fun little tip there.
Nice. Yeah, it's a good organizational tip. Hey, Omar, good to see you. Randy is saying that seeing this stuff in parallel projection is driving Aaron crazy.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was
working.
Yeah, didn't want to call him out specifically, but
that's funny. And then you also had a question of, speaking of Aaron, you don't use a 3D mouse. Why don't you use a 3D mouse?
That's a great question. Aaron has the fancy one that has like all the programmable buttons, and I have the little one, which basically is for like zooming. So if I was doing a 3D fly through, or if I was doing like a video recording, a screen recording or something, I do agree with Aaron that the 3D mouse is a smoother way. You don't have to do this and this and this all the time. But as I'm modeling, I find it for myself, I haven't committed to the learning curve to do that. So it's on my list of things to do. Thanks for asking.
And everyone has their own input stuff, because you sometimes use the Cintiq too for stuff, right?
Yes, I use my Cintiq.
You ever use it with SketchUp?
I do. I do use the Cintiq for SketchUp, especially with the freehand tool. Like when I'm tracing, let's say, my scale fig, which by the way, it's 2023, and I'm trying to tell myself that I should update my scale figure every year. So one thing I want to do is go in and I use the Cintiq to trace over the image, and it's super easy that way. I know that there's there's extensions like Image Cutter or whatever that one is, or Fredo Ghost that you can probably use. Fredo Portrait, excuse me. But in this case, I definitely use the Cintiq. Not like Tyson does. Tyson's funny because he'll actually use the tablet, not the Cintiq, but he uses like the old school tablet, which is sort of disconnected from the monitor. And I think that's awesome, because I have tried to do more of that, but I haven't. Again, I don't do like a lot of my modeling. I'm not really thinking about the audience as much while I'm modeling. The fact that zooming in and out is maybe a little bit like a lot to follow. So that is something I need to remember, is just to kind of not zoom so much. So speaking of what I'm doing right now and zooming in and out, is that I imported some CAD blocks, and I'll tell you why that I'm not just popping in furnishings from the 3D warehouse here, is that for two reasons. Is number one is a CAD block is very, it's almost an abstracted version of a furnishing. So if I bring this couch in from 3D warehouse and I have a very high poly couch because I know I'm going to render it, and then I go look at it in plan view, it could have like a lot of edges, and it could have a lot of hidden geometry and a lot of folds and curves and things. It may not actually look as good, even though it's a more detailed couch in plan view. The other thing is I found that when you're moving around objects for doing space planning, I found that you have to decide where you're going to grab it from. So if you're moving objects around in plan view, you may accidentally grab something from the top. And then when you place it, now you have a sunken furnishing, which then needs to be brought back up to the surface. So it might feel like an
Although
extra...
I know in the 70s, weren't those like sunken little conversation, living room areas? Those were popular. So maybe for that, it could be useful.
Yeah, if we were doing a Frank Lloyd Wright or 1960s house, we could sink the whole living room, and which I hear coming back, but then again, it's like every trend. It's coming back. It's like, come on. Okay, this is a good point to use.
Coming back and going out of style at the same time.
Yeah,
so
it's
just do whatever you want to do.
Isn't that the answer to every question? Just do whatever you want to do, because does it really matter? Does it really matter what's in style, what's not? So normally I would say, this is where I would say I want to make a copy of this. So what I would do is I would use the move tool. This is my old school way of doing it. And then I'd switch to the scale tool. And then I would hit -1. And then I would have not just a copy, but I would have a mirrored copy of this couch. And then I would place it. But since I did say that there is a great new feature in 2023 called Flip, this is a good chance to demo it. Excuse me, what Flip is trying to do right now, it's visualizing the axis that you want to flip it on. And I'll say that because another way to flip things would be to come over here and come to Flip Along, where is Flip Along? I don't even see Flip Along. Did Flip Along get depreciated?
Oh, maybe it got,
it might have been, because that was the old Flip, was Flip Along. So I'm not even going to show you Flip Along, but people who know Flip Along, when it says flip along green and red, you actually don't know what the component axis is unless you built it yourself. And even then you can forget. So in this case, the flip tool does the heavy lifting for you. And it says, first of all, by default, it's flipping along the center point. So if I just wanted to flip it, I could just say I want to flip it along this red. And you can see what it did there is it just flipped it. So if I flip this again by coming over here, and in this case, what I want to do is flip a copy of this, I can hit the modifier, which is the same as using move copy. So now the little plus sign shows up, and I click this little red axis again. And what it just did is a little hard to see, because what it did is it put them on top of each other. So if I move that, you can see it actually mirrored it, but it placed it on top of each other. So what I'm going to do is do that one last time. And for those of you that, if it helps to see it in perspective, let's do it that way. I'm going to go ahead and use the flip one more time, but this time, and Matt helped me realize that if you want to change the axis that you're flipping, because I don't read the release notes because that's too much work, you can actually you can move the axis. But instead of doing that, I want to do that one more time because what I want to do first is hit the modifier, so that what I'm doing is I'm making a copy, but then it says, where do you want to copy it from? And then, sorry, I just grabbed the blue axis. It's taking me a little bit. Maybe that's the hard part about flipping a 2D object, is that because, it makes it a little bit harder. You have to make sure that you're grabbing the right axis. So I'm going to grab that copy. I'm going to press the copy, grab the red, and snap the red to the corner, and then release it. And if you've done that a bunch of times, it would work seamlessly. That actually worked great that time.
Yeah, that looks good. And there is a way also to, you mentioned earlier that flip along would do the components red or green. And there is a way in this to toggle between the model axis and the component axis too. Just look for the modifier in the bottom with the new flip tool. So
yeah, so we'll try and come back to that
there.
We'll try and come back to that for everyone. For those that are still maybe want to play with that. For those that who don't already use an extension to do that. So what I'm doing here is I'm placing my CAD blocks for everything that is not going to be a custom furnishing, because we're almost to the hour mark and I need to spend some time doing custom furnishings. But what I wanted to do is just kind of come in and say, okay, because what we're going to do is do a block swap process. I have some furnishings that I've already picked out, so I'm not going to make you sit and watch me go through 3D Warehouse, as much fun as that might be. I am going to just finish placing these last few furnishings, and then these are the ones that the reason why I'm placing these ones is because these are ones that I know that would be spec'd as like off the shelf items, and everything else could be probably just modeled from scratch. So I think I got everything. This chair I think may represent, can't remember, it's been a little while, might represent the receptionist chair. So everyone's like, Eric, you're still in 2D and you come on, man. The other thing too is you don't have to use CAD blocks. Like if it's something simple like this stool right here, I could just come in here, grab the stool, make it a component, call it stool, and then just array this divided by 5. And there you go. Take those, move, copy, and I've got those. So you don't have to use the CAD blocks. It's just that if you want a symbol that sort of represents what it is without actually having to draw that symbol, like the pool table, which might take a little while, then you're good to go. So let's build some, do we want to build, I'm going to ask you, Matt, or I can ask the group, but there's a little bit of a delay. I want to build a couple of custom furnishings. I want to build this reception desk. I want to build a table and, you know, at least this built-in seating area. This is like a banquette seating. So like a bench. Got any preferences?
Let me ask the chat.
All right, what do we want to build? First, I'm going to turn off my walls and I'm going to turn off my ceiling so that we can actually see. And I'm going to turn on my reference plan. Okay, and I'm going to turn off my floor. There we go. Actually, I might want my walls.
Oh yeah, walls help. Poll is up, so vote in the poll on what you want to see next. We'll wait a minute for that to catch up and for folks to vote in there, but
we're going to be modeling, we're going to be modeling some furnishings. So I'm going to do this 2 times. Tools, section plane. I'm going to put 2 section planes in because I think whichever direction I want to do, I kind of want the walls. View, section planes, view guides, view, axis, view, section, planes, view, and view. Perfect.
Nice, very cool. One of your old videos that got a lot of views relatively recently was about section planes and having more than one, like in a different context, so you can have kind of, you know, a couple different sections showing at once. So it's a good use case of that same kind of situation.
Yeah, the cool thing about this is that you can toggle them on and off really, really easily. So if you wanted that wall to show, I could just say not active. And then I could come over here and just say active, and I could just toggle those off. So what's nice about having some section planes set up in an interiors is that if I need my walls, but I'm down here and my walls maybe are getting in my way, I could just set up, I could use a couple different section planes to just sort of get a better sense of the walls for context, especially as we're doing built-ins like cabinets and kitchen counters and things like that. You want the walls, but you don't want especially you don't want interior walls. You don't want something that's blocking your view. All right, what do we got, Matt? Mm-hmm. We want to do reception desk? Are we going to do the banquette seating? Kitchen? We can do kitchen. We can do the bookshelf or the kitchen counter or kitchen. What is that called? Common table, community table.
Those weren't on the poll, so we can't do those.
Okay, well then, whatever you've got on the poll. While you're doing that, I'm just going to go ahead and take a minute, and I'm just going to do a coffee table. So I'm going to bring that up 18 inches.
Okay, cool. Seating area is the one that won the poll, so we're going to close that out. Seating area. Thanks for voting, everybody.
Okay, and I'm going to bring that down.
Choose your own adventure today.
Okay. So while we were waiting, I just went ahead and made myself a coffee table. And then as I go, I kind of tend to give things solid colors to represent their material. You don't have to do that. It just means to me that when I go later to put things, to put materials in, that just reminds me that that's a wood material. Maybe I won't do that right now, but sometimes I'll color things as I go. So seating area. Let's get to it. This one's going to be kind of fun. So what I'm going to do, I may have to switch back and forth between trace mode and not, but we'll see if I can do it just drawing right on top. I want to inference that and then pull that out. I want to give that a proper dimension, 2.5 foot. Actually, that's it. I'm just going to pull the width out. That's probably easier. And then I'll just move this along that edge. And I am going to need to make that transparent because, yeah, yes, because styles.
Because you got to see through it.
Yes, because I need to be able to, I need to be able to see my reference line. So what's cool about this is that now this is symmetrical. So in a way, I can just from the beginning cut this in half, group, delete. Remember my group delete trick? That was a fun trick that I like to do. Come over here. We're going to go 3.25 foot. And then this one here, this is going to be the bench, and this is going to be a planter. So first thing I want to do is do the planter. That's going to be easy. I'm going to come over 2 inches, push pull that up. I don't know what that's going to be yet. I'm going to go 2 foot, but I may have to adjust that. The banquette seating is going to come up. A seat, I'm going to say my butt height wants to be at 18 inches, but some people might say, well, 20 inches, or other people might say 16, but we're going to just go ahead and do that if that's okay. We'll go up 18 and we'll come up another 2 for the cushion that sort of it sits on. And then this is where it gets a little bit tricky, is that I need to pull this over what I think is the equivalent to about here. So I don't know what that dimension is. I'm just going to guess it. I'm going to look at it and say, let's give that a nice round number by saying 7 inches. So I'm going to pull this over 7. I'm going to pull this up. I don't know how high I want this to be, but I'm just going to go up another, I'm going to go up, let's just say 18 inches. Okay. And then because I'm going to switch out of my trace mode for this, just so we can see it's a little bit better. Now, because this is a banquette seating, it's going to have a little bit of a what's called a banter. No, what's the word I'm thinking of? Batter, right? So that means that it's
batter.
It's sloped. So if it should move for me, but for some reason this one doesn't want to, so I'm okay with, I know that's not the right way to do it, but I'm actually okay with, just drawing the batter and then using the push-pull tool. So different ways to do it, different ways to get that sort of battered edge. And if you wanted this to read as a cushion, I can pull that the same 2 inches, and then I can go in and grab that. So then this reads as sort of a cushion, but I don't know that that matters because this is the middle and we're not going to see that. In fact, I can erase that line because we're going to just mirror this whole thing. So make it a component. And I'm going to use my flip tool. Thank you, everyone. Be being patient with me as I remind myself how to do this. I'm going to pull that to here and let go. Whoops, I did that wrong.
Thank you everybody for Flip. Thank you, Heather. Heather is part of that engineering team, so she definitely worked on a lot of stuff that's in 2023. So Heather's a new scale figure, if you missed the beginning part.
Okay, flipped it. Wasn't exactly right. That's okay. I don't mind moving things. I like moving things. All right, so now the last thing to do is, I know NROUT's got an extension that hides those cut lines, but I'm just going to go old school, and I'm just going to use the shortcut I have a shortcut to hide. So those edges, if I turn my hidden geometry on, you can see I've hidden that seam where the 2 benches come together. And then this is an opportunity too to maybe take this pot here. Now I'm using the same component because when I go to place my plants, I'm actually not wanting to do this a bunch of times. So when I replace this plant component, this pot, with an actual 3D one, you'll see that it'll replace everywhere. So those 2 CAD blocks I'm going to place inside. What's cool about that is when I do that, it shows up on over here too, because it's a symmetrical component. I don't know that I have a table for this one. So if we wanted to, we can just make one really quick. I'm just going to give that a 6-inch base, bring that up 1, offset that 2, offset that 3, offset that 4. I'm going to keep going until I get the number that I like, 4, and we'll pull that up. How tall is a table? Table height?
Chat?
36 inches, so I'm already up 2, so I'll go up 30, and then from there, that's too thick. I'm going to pull that down even more. This is like when I'm just drafting. It's like when I want to just listen to, this is when I just get in the zone and just listen to music.
Oh, zone out and, craft some nice looking tables. That's what I say.
Okay, so that one, we're going to use the scale tool, center modifier. If I want this a little bit more detailed, I just grab that edge there, and instead of 24, I just usually just double it. So I just kind of take whatever the default number is and double it, and then make that, bring that up 2, bring that up 1. That's not the nicest looking table in the world, but it'll do the trick for right now. And since that's a component now, I'll just go ahead and copy. I'm going to make a component of 2 of these. So now I have a component within a component, which is now a table and the chair. So, so I can, oops. So when I go to place that chair later, it'll replace it for all of those. There we go. Seating area number 1, done. Reception desk now. I'm going to go reception desk if you don't mind.
I don't. That came in second, so that's great.
Okay, so we already said that's 2.5 because I did that 2.5 foot because I did that little test. It's not perfect, but remember, I have to use kind of my judgment and think in reality, would this line really be an inch wider, or would the reception desk be actually the same width all the way around? And to me, I feel like when I'm modeling stuff, I have to just use my judgment. And I look at that opening, I look at the number, it says 2 foot 10 inches. I'm actually going to go 3, so I'm going to go a little wider. And then there we go. So sometimes I'll group before I push pull, and then that just out of habits. And I want to take the reception desk up. I'm going to go 42 inches, which is counter height. And then switch back. Did anyone notice that my working? I have a little space in my working scene. All right. So there's a really cool detail on this. Where did it go? There it is. Let's pop over here. I want to finish off this counter. The first thing I need to do is separate the marble material. And the next thing I want to do is do this little wood grid. So that way I can feel like the reception counter is done. And then I want to spend some time, 3. Then I want to spend some time bringing in our furnishings that I've already selected from the 3D warehouse and placing some of those. So I don't know, and then we can come back, and depending on how much time we have, we can come back and continue to build some stuff. Hopefully people have some questions that I can answer, so that if we do have to choose how to spend the rest of our time from an interior design perspective, we can do that. So I'm going to build this wood.
Totally. Reminder that drop your questions in the chat and Eric can address them. You're just so comprehensive in your walkthrough training here that there's nothing left to have a question about, I guess, so far. But yeah, if anything comes up, definitely drop a Q in the chat, guys.
Yeah. Oh, how did I do that before? Because, oh, okay, I see. I just wanted that. And then I want to delete all of those. And then I want to go paste that there. I'll show you why, because I'm going to make a component out of this. And then I'm going to copy that down. And then I want to copy this over. I don't know if this is the right way. This is not how I did it before. Times 10 times 11. And then what I would do is come in here, and because it's a component, just offset that by 2. And then I could pull this edge out by 1. So that's kind of a quick and dirty way to do it. I don't know if that's the best way. It looks like it's a little bit thinner than the way I drew it. So let me pop over here. Oh, the other thing that's going to do, I'm going to go back and make that just a little bit thinner. What did I say that was? 2? How about 1.5? There we go. And then this one, I want to push. The reason why is because this is actually 1 piece of wood here instead of 2 pieces of wood. So what I need to do is split that difference in half. So if that's 3 inches, I need to move this over 1.5, which is going to work up until this group here, in which case I'm going to go ahead and make these unique. And I'm going to bring that line back over. You'll see, you'll see. It's like so many things when I'm doing these demos, I'd be like, just wait, it'll come together. Just trust me.
I can see it. I can envision where you're going here.
Are you get what I'm putting out?
Oh, definitely. No, it's a good use of components for for that kind of stuff. Repeating stuff like this.
Yeah, that's not the way I think that I normally. Why do I have this edge? I deleted. Oh, I see, because I push pulled that edge. I think I want to unhide, and then I want to break it from here to here, and I want to hide that one and that one.
Okay, we got a question in the chat. It's from Keggy, and he says, I know there are different design styles that are used throughout the industry. What is Eric's favorite style? What's your favorite style of design, Eric?
I'm not sure I know what exactly design style, because that, you mean like, would it be like modern, classical, traditional?
Contemporary, yeah, like that kind of stuff, I assume.
Oh, yeah, I don't know. You've got me on that one. I mean, I don't have one. I like traditional stuff more so for proportion. I think the problem with modern stuff is that they get modern with like materials, and they get too fun and eclectic, but then they break too many rules. So in a way, I almost default to traditional stuff, just because they have a traditional structure with things like proportion that are ignored, I think, in a lot of contemporary designs. If that answers the question.
Yeah, cool. So you're a traditionalist.
Yeah, if I had to pick.
The classic proportion. You like the the Vitruvian golden section and all that, golden ratio.
Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna clean. Yeah. I like things that I like the things that have hidden. If you've read, I've got a great book that's called The Old Way of Seeing, and it talks about things like hidden triangles, and obviously golden ratio is one of those things. And so that's kind of nice to me, because it just goes to show that you kind of, as a designer, you understand those things. And again, it doesn't mean you have to utilize them all the time. It just means that you know of them, and that they are used when they should be, and used in the right context.
Yeah, you like having this kind of secret designer understanding of things going on, right?
Yeah. Like, I don't like the new stuff that breaks too many rules, because I think that it's kind of like what I like to quote Tobey Maguire from Spider-Man in this case. Great power comes great responsibility, and I think that's it's how I kind of feel as designers. It's like you're designing spaces that you're not going to live in. So it's one thing to do something like with really sharp edges and bright lights and crazy color textures, if that's your house and you're going to live in it. It's also like if it's a school and we're going there to learn, or it's a restaurant and you're going there to have a nice time, I just feel like, there's a responsibility there. And I feel like it's sometimes a little bit. Sorry, that's a little, you asked my opinion, I'm going to give it to you. So you got to be careful.
No, I like it. So do you think that the designer of this WeWork space had that responsibility in mind and did a responsible design job on this?
I think this one's pretty good, to be honest with you. I think I chose it because if I go back to, and I'll just a little segue here since you brought it up, these tiles here are actually there from the lobby. So the building's actually, I can't remember if I think it's a new building, but I think there was a historic building there before. So it was like a bank building. So they were bringing back a little bit of the history. I also think that while it's eclectic and it has different styles that are kind of combined, it has a little bit of a Southwest. It's Houston, so I think there's a little bit of a Southwest flair that they've brought into it that I think starts to show. It just reminds you where you are in the world. Just kind of little fun contemporary things like the fixture. I think with lighting and stuff like that, and with when you want to call attention to something like entries and wayfinding, I think that's a chance for us to be a little bit more, I don't want to say avant-garde, but experiment a little bit, have a little bit more fun. Definitely, we should be having fun with our work too. It shouldn't just be the same thing over and over again.
Yeah, totally. That's a good call. And Randy in chat here says, people breaking too many rules usually don't realize that the rules exist, and they do have a reason that they're rules.
Yes, thank you, Randy. They are there for a reason. They are usually good reasons for them. Not always, but at least if we know what they are. I think if you're going to break them, might kind of, and to sort of wrap this topic up here, but like if you're going to break them, I think you got to know what you're breaking, and I think that there's a lot of people that, in my experience, they're breaking rules, but they don't even know which rules they're breaking. So if you're going to break it, great. At least understand it.
Yeah, this reminds me of the AI conversation of like, kind of understands things as they are, but not really the influence or like the reason behind it. So like in Aaron's AI modeling stream that he modeled like from an AI 3D model reference, or I guess it was just a 2D image that he used as a reference. It understands like where a wall goes, but not really how one ends or like how it connects to other stuff,
Look what I just did.
That's what brought to mind to me, but it's a cool looking table. Like what goes in the middle there? Is that where you put your charging cables and stuff like that?
Well, that wasn't supposed to go there. That was supposed to go here. It was when I was drawing it. This is the problem with drawing in X-ray. It's why you have to do this sort of the order of operations. I was drawing it and it snapped to this lower portion, which is the underside of the bar counter and not the top, which would be the marble part. So what I would need to do in this case is just bring that back up. And I'm placing it. So luckily, it's not like it's wasted. It's not all is lost. I just need to go in and just put it in the right place. Should not be buried inside. It should be in this marble counter. And again, like I said, I'm going to give this I'm just going to give this some colors as I sort of go. That's wood. I don't like that wood color. That's wood, and that's going to be this marble color. And yeah, so where are we doing? How are we doing on time? Looks like we're doing okay. What I want to do is I want to I want to grab that wood color. And I think the problem is it's my shadow settings. So if I go to my shadows, I've got them set it's a little too bright. So what you're not seeing is that wood color that I set up. Oh, one thing I see here is you can see some Z fighting now that I've given some color. So I probably want to go in and delete that back face of this little wood component because it's actually just a wood trim. And then go in as well and place that color on top of those. Whoops. Walls, again, turn them off. The hard part, a hard part for me about working with interior spaces is,
the walls always get in the way.
The walls do get in the way. So what I want to do is group this.
That's how they should build buildings. Build them from the inside out, and then that way the walls don't get in your way till the very end. You put the walls up, done.
Yeah. And now that I've got my colors changed, Matt, you're funny.
You got it. Yeah.
I'm like, because I'm trying to work, and I'm like, so I'm half listening, and I was like, okay, come on.
Yeah, I know.
You are right though. Okay, so I'm going to color these, and then one thing we didn't do on this, which I kind of want to do now, is I want to. I'm just going to apply some color as I go here, just because I feel like, especially when before we get to the finish, it'll feel like I don't know. It'll feel like we've got a little bit further, at least with some color. So wood tabletops, and what color should this banquette seating be? If we want to just be literal with it, we can say, oh, it's kind of like a maroon texture, kind of like a maroon red. So
what did you call it?
I said banquette, but I don't think I pronounced that right. Banquette.
Oh, I have no idea. I didn't. I heard you say it earlier, but I was like,
banquette. And it's not. It's not.
Now I'm going to ask.
Yeah, it's not banquet with a Q. It's banquette, which means built-in. So it just means that like a diner, kind of like a diner seat, the bench is built in sort of to the table or to the wall. All right, what I want to do is pause here for a second because I have a file and I want to open up my furnishings. So when I was teaching this class, when I was building the lessons on campus, one thing I didn't want to do is send people to 3D Warehouse and say, go and find all this stuff. So I built, as you can see, I took some time. It did take a little bit of time. I built what I consider the context, which is built into the walls. I separated the furnishings from the kitchen, so the floor, and the 3D elements that we need. So so this is what I'm going to use instead of building all of this from. I want to build some more of this from scratch, but if we don't have time, I'm just going to steal from myself, and we're just going to furnish the space. And I would love to save some time in the last 15 minutes to set some views. And I want to show one tip that I thought was really important that I did in the lecture, in the class, the campus course, which is showing alternative design arrangements. So assuming the client likes maybe where the kitchen is, but wants to say, well, can you flip the lounge in the library or the lounge in the co-working? I wanted to show a really kind of cool way to do that if we can. And that would be a good way to wrap up. So I'm going to copy those over, and we're going to pop over here to the side and put my stuff over in the, now that Tyson, I learned this from Tyson, we're going to call it the Boneyard, which is where we have all of our working stuff.
Yeah, good to have. We had a quick question here in the chat about, have you ever used Rhino before as a modeling software?
No, but I've worked enough with people who have used Rhino. So I will say that I've worked with Rhino and not been the Rhino modeler myself. So
cool.
I try to speak intelligently about Rhino. Right? Kind of?
Yeah.
A little bit? Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, totally. It's good to know what else is out there. And obviously you're working, like you said, with teams of other folks who have their own preferences. But of course, here on the SketchUp live stream, we're going to be preferring SketchUp. So yeah, cool to.
Yeah, we don't really talk about Rhino during the SketchUp live streams, or Revit, or Grasshopper, or any of those other fun tools that are Shaper 3D, AutoCAD.
Yeah, not saying I wouldn't watch those streams if they had their own live streams, but of course we'll be showing the SketchUp on this.
Yeah,
one.
no,
we also had a reminder in the from the chat.
Shame.
Oh, have you been not seeing my little Command S in the bottom corner?
I haven't been, but
okay.
apparently neither has Lenny. But yeah, no, thanks for.
No. I'm giving you a hard time. That's absolutely a great reminder. It's kind of, for me, it's like a reflex. I'm probably saving like every 6 or 7 minutes.
Well, now with the new multi-threaded saving in SketchUp 2023.
Yeah, there hasn't been any delays at all.
To not be saving every 30 seconds because that's not going to slow you down. Aha. How about that? Yeah.
You are the promotional guy. I'm just like, let me show you how it works. And Matt's like, let me sell it. I'm going to sell it to you. And I'm just like.
The promotion, the DJ who's in the back of the song yelling.
So listen, I'm gonna cheat, and I'm gonna use the old way to flip stuff, because there are some instances in which case the scale by negative factor may actually be just as easily or just as useful as a technique. So I'm not saying that, no disrespect at all to our friend the flip tool, which I will be using a ton, but at the same time I also, just out of habit, may also just kind of use the other one. The nice thing about it is that, like everything in SketchUp, you've got choices. You've got choices. Okay, I won't sing. All right, I don't think there's a door there. I think that's an open hallway, and then it takes you to like a series of conference rooms. So I'm going to leave it at that. So what I wanted to do was come back to, I put the doors in. Now, if I had CAD blocks for the doors, I would have just popped the doors into the CAD block and it would have swapped them all at once. So I want to show you what that process is like. I call this the block swap. I don't know that it has another name because it's kind of what it is, but I want to give you an example. Like I've got this 3D plant here, and then I want to come over here and I want to put that 3D plant into the symbol. So I'm just going to go to my viewing scene and turn my ceiling off. And the reason why is because it might be easier to see when I don't have my trace image below. But what I want to do is also I'm going to turn my floor off for this. So what I want to do is sometimes what I'll do is paste my plant component so that it is exactly where I want. It's easier sometimes for me to paste it in place outside of the component, the block component. And then I'll copy that, roger that. I'll go into this group and then I will edit, paste in place. And what's cool about that is if I turn my head, there's one. And if I turn my head a little bit more, there's a few more. Those poor guys are sitting a little low, so they want to actually lift up a little bit. But see what I did was that's my block swap. Now, in this case, if I did not need the 2D symbol, I would toss it. I would just delete it and say, I'm done. This 2D symbol is only for the space planning exercise. Sorry, I've touched my mic. What I tend to do is like, I'm just going to create a tag and I'm going to call this symbol 2D. And the reason for that is that I will often actually keep my symbols on their own tag that I can toggle on and off. And then this plant here, I want to make sure that that is on what's called furniture 3D. I'm going to delete that tag because the reason why is that my furniture reminds me that I have symbols, which is used, which I'm going to use when I go to send it to layout as part of my concept plan. But then I also have my furniture 3D. And let me give you an example of why I said that's important, because if I go into plan view and I come over here and I go to hidden line style because I'm doing a CAD, I'm doing this in CAD. Now those little things here, these little ficus plants, they look like cabbages actually. I mean, you tell me, Matt, if you agree, but it may or may not read as plants. If I'm going to go, then I have to say, okay, that's a plant. So sometimes what I'll do then is when I go to send it to SketchUp, when I go to send it to layout and do a construction floor plan of it, I can actually say turn the 3D symbol off. So the one that I want, it's a 3D, and I'll turn the 2D symbol back on. And so what's cool about that is that they're actually both in my model and they're both contained within the same wrapper. So if I needed another one here, and then I go in and the same thing, I turn off my 3D and I still have my 2D symbols. So I'm just trying to say, that was a long way of saying that there's still some value if you've gone and laid out CAD blocks or someone gave you some furnishings and said, use these blocks. There's actually, to me, quite a bit of value of retaining those. Like this here is a rectangle, so it looks the same. I don't need a CAD block for that. When I go to plan view, that's my coffee table. But in this case, my plant, it makes a lot of sense for me to stick with the abstracted symbol. What do you think, Matt?
Yeah, totally. Well, it's a good reminder too that, tags are different than groups of components, that you could still have multiple tags or multiple entities within a component tag differently so that, you can just swap it. Randy says he used that for 2D door sweeps for when he does plan views. So it's a good call.
What did I want to do next? I wanted to grab, my lounge area. So you can see when I turn that 3D symbol off, I've already tagged these. So when I turn that symbol off, I lost all of my 3D furniture because I pre-tagged them. So what I'm gonna do is I grab that couch, copy it, come over here. Like I said before, I'm gonna place it first, just so that I feel like I've got the placement. And then I'm going to come over here just for me. I don't know why. It's just when you're in there, it's just everything fades out and I just don't want to accidentally mess up anything. So I kind of get my placement sort of dialed in for the most part. My couch is a little bit bigger than the one I have in CAD. I don't know. Maybe I can scale it. It's okay to me, I guess. It's okay. I'm going to copy that, delete it. I know it's an extra step. It's just how I do it. Do it however you want. I always say that if you don't have a process, take mine. If you have a process that works for you, ignore, a lot of my tips, because obviously you're going to use the process that works best for you.
Yeah, that's a good call. We had a comment here from Trin says, so could you just have two tags, one 2D and one 3D, and then just have every component has a 2D and a 3D component in it, and then you would just kind of tag those separately, and then that way you only have a couple tags.
Yeah, I have a couple different ones. I have 3 furniture tags, and I'll explain. I haven't gotten that far yet, but it's for me, it's a little bit more than just 3D, 2D. The reason why is because everything's 3D. First of all, the walls are 3D, the columns and fixtures are 3D. So partially for me, hang on, I forgot to save this, so I want to save that. Because it's a brand new one. Yeah, because it's brand new. It's going to say so. Okay. So to me,
I guess you could use tag folders for that too, even if you had them multiple 3D tags, right? Yeah.
I mean, you can however it works for you, do it. Mm-hmm. For me, I'm taking that CAD geometry, I'm grouping it, and I'm coming here and I'm putting it on a symbols tag, so that within this I have, if you look at my entity info, within here I have a 3D and I have a 2D inside of this container. You'll notice this container itself sits untagged. If you wanted to, you can tag both, but then now you're adding another level of hierarchy, which for me could create some confusion, but you could group all of these things together. All of these could be grouped, and then you could add a tag for lounge. and then everything that sits in the lounge. The cool thing about that is then you could toggle the lounge off, and then you could still keep all the furnishings in the co-working space. You can keep all the furnishings in the kitchen turned on, but basically you can work by group, especially if the model starts getting really heavy. Then you may only want to work in, like, say, I want to work in the kitchen, and now I want to work in the living room. So you can, definitely use tag folders or use these sort of container groups to help keep you organized. That's where Outliner probably comes in, because now all of a sudden you're nesting pretty deeply. That's my nesting. That's my symbol for nesting, because you got to go into.
Nest.
Yep. All right. So I'm going to do some furnishings for about 15 more minutes, and I want to take 10 minutes to set up some views in the last, or about 10 more minutes to furnish. And then I want to take the last few minutes. I'm going to pop up into the finished model. So I want to make sure that I'm hitting on all the major points for this live stream. And then I think that this audience is savvy enough that they can sort of, even if we don't finish, they can close the gap. As long as I make sure I've sort of passed along enough tips to make it feel like I've done it justice today.
Yeah,
so again,
definitely.
If you wanted, you could bypass the whole CAD block process and just come in here and just say, whoops, not quit. My plan view is Command 1, and then that's right next to Command Q. So I'm always accidentally hitting Command Q. So if you wanted to, you could just come over here and just say, yeah, I'm just going to willy-nilly. I'm not worried about dimensions. I'm not worried about the spacing. I'm not worried about a 2D symbol. That's totally fine as well. Whatever works for you guys.
Whatever floats your boat, right?
Whatever,
Isn't that what they say?
Whatever floats your boat. And then I'm using this one for the coffee table. Oh, I forgot that I actually had a better table. Remember how I just modeled like a crappy little table for that cafe area?
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually had one picked out. And then I need this lounge chair over here. I think I had 2 lounge chairs. I had one without arms and one with arms. So I'm using my modifier to come over here, turn that 90 degrees. You can see a lot of this just becomes a little bit repetitive. And I don't really mind, because actually I think that the things that are somewhat repetitive are actually, oh, there's a little tip here. If you're trying to click into something and I'm accidentally clicking into this image group, or I'm clicking into my wall group, sometimes it's better to highlight the thing that you want to go into and then hit enter or return on the keyboard. Because then you're not double clicking into something, especially when you have stuff that's stacked on top of it. You're actually accidentally clicking into the wrong thing. Again, Outliner can do that. You can go straight to this object by finding your chair symbol and then using Outliner to go inside of it. So then I can paste my chair in place.
Yeah, good call.
Yeah.
A lot of the stuff you got from 3D Warehouse, and obviously there's so many models on there. Is there a way that a thing that you look for, or a way that helps you search for particular models that you use that you think work well in a model like this? Like, do you look at poly count, file size?
Yes.
You just look at like how many likes it has or anything like that? Or you just kind of just look around and see what works good?
Well, number one, I look for what's going to work stylistically in the space. So even though I'm using this as a reference, obviously there's no way I'm going to recreate. Like, this is a nesting table, so I need a nesting table. There's a jute mat with like with a cool kind of, I want to say geometric rug. So jute mat, geometric rug, nesting table. These are just kind of the high level categories that I look for. Wicker ottoman. So when I'm in 3D Warehouse and I'm making my choices, first of all, I kind of use those as my search terms. And then from there, I narrow it down to, I look for things like, if I can, a trusted product developer. So if it's coming from Forms and Services, or it's coming from Herman Miller, like it's being built by that company, then that may be a better way to go. If it's, I will also then look at the, if I can't find something from a trusted company, I will also use the poly count sliders. If I want something that's a little bit higher quality and try and weed out maybe some of the junk, I might look for something that's a little bit higher quality. If I'm worried about quality, I might bring the quality, and when I say quality, I mean polygon. So file size, I might bring those sliders down so that I'm not getting a chair that's going to be 20 megabytes when a chair should only be half a megabyte at most.
Yeah. Cool.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks
Yeah,
for
good.
going
Good
over
question.
that. Yeah, that's good tips for sure. Yeah, the poly count slider really is It's helpful for, like you said, not only taking out the 10 million model or 10 million poly coffee mug or whatever, but also for kind of weeding out, like you said, the somebody just did a 2D image of a chair and then uploaded it or whatever.
So little trick here, unless there's a pressing comment, if you're doing like all these chairs, I'm not going to lay them all out, right? So what I would do is copy this chair, go into the table component. Actually, I'm going to, go into the table component, paste that in place. And then what I would do is literally just copy, in this case, I'd copy this chair twice. So what I've done is if I have like, if I'm doing this conference room and I've got 80 chairs or something like that, I'm not going to place 80 chairs. I'm going to place it once and I'm going to copy it twice. And then I've got them all done. So little tip there, pro tip. I need my pool table. Yeah, I need my pool table. So I'm trying to think like I'm just kind of doing the same thing. So maybe this isn't very interesting. I hope, I know for some people that are at the pub in the UK, probably anything that I do, a show on the screen could be interesting, speaking from experience. But I do want to make sure that we sort of use, the last little bit of our time thinking about really focusing on some of the things that makes working with interiors unique, which is why I wanted to make sure that I save some time for the scenes. But otherwise, I have this bookshelf we could build. I have, if I toggle my section cut off, we have the kitchen. We could do at least one of the cabinets or one of the framing for if you go to here, you can see that we've got this bookshelf. We've got these cabinets in here that sort of are built in. It's kind of a frame for the kitchen space. Do we want to do a poll as far as like how we want to spend the rest of our time? Furnishings? Materials, we can do the structure here. Sorry, not that button. We could do this cool little, this thing. Could build this cool little neon accent light above the reception counter.
Okay, anything else? I got 3 furnishings, materials, neon light.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's see. And then I'm going to save the last like 10 minutes to set up some views and show sort of scene concept alternatives. But I think as far as feeling like we did the space justice, I feel like there's a little bit more work that we can do. So what do you guys think?
Okay, cool. Yeah, I put the poll up. So we'll wait till that scrolls through. And please voice your opinion in the polls, of course. We also had a question here about Outliner. Is that like layout? I don't know if you want to quickly show Outliner and just what it looks like. I know you haven't like, organized it for Outliner, this particular model, but might just bring it up and talk through what it does. It'd be cool.
Yeah, these chairs seem a little low, so these stools, so I'm just going to fake it. I'm all about faking stuff, fake it. Yeah, let's pull up our Outliner. Let me show you. Actually, I'm going to switch over, if you don't mind. I think it would be better to show it in my finished model because I actually spent quite a bit of time. Part of the course was the fact that when you're in a smaller space, being organized, especially if you're going to go to layout and you want to tag stuff. So let's we're going to segue to this in a minute, but what I want to do is actually this would be good opportunity to pause on the modeling and show Outliner in a finished drawing. So what Outliner,
sure. Yeah, let's check it out.
Yeah, so let me just get that Outliner so you can see it here. First thing is Outliner is that you can see, if I pull out, it's not just the geometry and tags. It's actually everything in your model, even if it's hidden or not. So in this case, if I click on my sections, it's toggling through my different sections. It's toggling through all my section cuts, even though they're hidden. So if I wanted to activate a section, I could do that by going into Outliner. Or if I kept Outliner open, if I was smart, I would keep Outliner open while I'm modeling. And then from there, I don't have to go up to View, Section Planes, go into the group, activate cut, right? Nothing wrong with that. But in this case, it's kind of cool because it's a shortcut to going in and toggling sections on and off by doing it in Outliner. So that's the first thing. It also shows you things that are that are not visible. So if you have something in your tag group that's been turned off, it'll show you there. You can see this is where what I did was I didn't create tag folders necessarily. You'll notice my tags are all just loose, willy-nilly. But I did create outliner folders. So what I did was I grouped like all of my kitchen stuff in one group. And you can see here that kitchen is a group. So if I toggled my kitchen off, in fact, what I'm going to do is maybe it's better to see it if I turn my ceiling off. And I'm going to turn that section cut. Which section cut was it? Not that one. I don't want to view any of my section planes because I want to be able to see the whole space. View section cuts. Okay, thanks. Okay, so the cool thing about this is that here I've got a group for my reception, a group for my kitchen, a group for my furniture alternate, because I'm going to do two different furnishing concepts for review. And then within that, for example, if I go into, let's look at the kitchen. If I open that up, you can see here that all of the things, like all of my stools are loose. So I could create a group for stools. So if I click on that, it's going to highlight which stool. So I could click on any of these stools and it'll tell me which stool that is. So if I group them
Your
all,
head's kind of covering up, by the way.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, thank you. I'm not looking at my OBS.
No problem.
Yeah, sorry.
That's cool though. I like the organization. It looks really nice.
So in the kitchen table, for this community table, for example, I can go straight to community table. Not only does it highlight it, but it tells me that inside the community table, I have two groups that I didn't have time to name. So I could double click into one. The first group I am now inside of. So I'm actually inside of the countertop group. So if you're really, really picky about naming things, I would name this countertop. And then I would name this other group. If I double click on this one, it takes me to the base. And you can see that if I double click on it, if I single click on it, it just highlights. And if I double click on it, it takes me inside. So it's another way to navigate your model, but more importantly, it just reinforces how important organization and naming things is, especially when you've nested, when we have nested. So kind of, it serves sort of two purposes. So hopefully that gives you an overview. I think there are probably some pros out there that use Outliner more than I do. It's something that I would like to use more, and I think that I see the value in it. And my only problem is that when you start using it, you should, keep using it, use it properly. So, but even just as a high-level organizational tool to show you what's in your model and how to navigate, even just that, I think there's value.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, thanks for showing that off.
Yeah.
Hi to Designs House in the chat.
كيف حالك?
And we have a couple questions. I don't know if you want to keep going, or we have, a couple more maybe in-depth questions if you want to answer those. I don't know if you want to leave them for the end, or if you want to.
No, give me some questions.
Okay, first one, Casey Cream asks how you set mirror reflections or like glass of a window. How would you simulate a reflection in your model?
I wouldn't. That's my short answer. In SketchUp, I wouldn't. I would use V-Ray, and I wouldn't simulate a reflection using SketchUp. I mean, you could do that.
Like a mirror? Can you do a V-Ray like texture that's just a mirror and then it reflects stuff? Is that as easy as that, or is there some more complex thing they have to do?
Yeah. So like if I was, for example, if I was rendering this shot and there was a mirror here, you would just apply a mirrored finish, or what Chrome is also essentially the same as a mirror. So you just apply that to the surface, and when you render, it's going to reflect that back. So you could do it. I'll short answer. You could basically do a screenshot of like what you see. I would turn around, like if my mirror, let's just pretend like my mirror is right here. That's a mirror. You could stand right here and look this way and basically capture a screenshot of this and then go in and place that screenshot in the mirror. But I would fade it and lighten it, right? So it doesn't look like a photograph. It's like kind of, the only problem with that, of course, is that a mirror, when you turn, if you're navigating the model, what's reflected is going to be different, which is why V-Ray will update the reflection. Whereas if you do a screenshot of something and you look at two different angles, what you see in the reflection is going to be different, which is why I probably wouldn't place a screenshot of what you would see in the space, unless you knew that you were looking at one view and that mirror is very, very important to the story. in which case it could be worth the effort. So I hope I
Yeah.
answered that question for you. Did
Good
that
call.
justice?
Yeah, no, that's a good answer. And then Studio RT Cool asks, if you want to do a V-Ray render, how do you examine and manage materials?
Examine and manage. That's sort of it's hard with the terminology because I want to ask you, Mr. Archie Cool, myself, what you mean. Examine. Sorry, say that again.
So he
I
said,
kind of understand
I'm gonna
the question.
do some interpretation, and you can chime in the chat if you have if it differs from what I'm saying. But maybe he's saying like, how do you pick out a good one, and how do you kind of managing materials? I feel like makes kind of sense. But I don't know if examine is like find the right ones or
find the right ones. Well, I will. This is a good plug for my I'm going to plug my campus track that's going to be coming out here in the next, and I'll put a timeline on it because it's on, because it's finished. It just needs to be, we're just launching it in the back end. So I think I want to say within the next week, V-Ray for interiors is going to be coming to SketchUp Campus. So I'm going to plug that and say that I answered in a lot more detail there. But with materials, it all just depends on what you're looking for. Chaos Cosmos is a library that's built in. So if you have V-Ray, you have Chaos Cosmos, and you'll have access to their library. And you just you browse and pick. You can make materials, you can find materials online, or you can go to the default browser, the default materials library. So
he chimed in and said, not all SketchUp textures have V-Ray properties. So I don't know if that's like reflection or bumps, he says.
Yes, that's correct. A SketchUp material is not going to work very well for V-Ray. It's just the way it is. That's not what it's designed for. So I would say that, hang on, I want to finish this thought here. I want to create those little creases in between the wood. So I'm going to go select all, intersect faces with selection. There we go. See, now I get those little crease lines. Okay.
Nice.
Yeah, thanks. All right, I'm going to answer that question, and then I want to just wrap up and spend a few minutes looking at the finished model, because I think we covered a lot of ground actually. I do want to turn.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot there was a poll running too. The neon light was the winner of the poll. So if we have time to crank out the light.
Yeah, we might be able to do the light. So let me kind of finish the thought here really quick. Just to be respectful to my friend, Mr. RT Cool, the V-Ray does read additional material information. So it's not to say you can't use a SketchUp material. It's a SketchUp material only has the SketchUp portion, the base material. And so if you really liked a SketchUp material or a material you found online and imported, then you would need to then take the effort to add that V-Ray information to it. So reflection, bump, normal, whether that's emission, those are all sort of extra layers that you would add on top. So that's why I say it's best to go with the default library, because it has all that stuff. But if you're looking to create something that doesn't exist before, then you just need to understand how those V-Ray properties work so that you can add that information on to your own material. Yeah.
Good call. And more detail, more in-depth V-Ray stuff coming in your interiors campus course, which will... Everyone's waiting with bated breath because very excited to see.
Oh, because we're going to do the
stuff, of course. So that's cool.
Okay. Yes, please. I will say that I'll say this each time we do one of these courses, they get a little bit better and better. And this is definitely our best one that we've ever launched. I feel like Tim Cook was like, I'm so excited to show that this is the most powerful iPad we've ever. Of course, it's the most powerful iPad because what else would it be? So for our course, anyway, it is definitely the best course I've ever done. So I'm happy with. I'm proud of it. So let's go over to Yeah, and it's, because of Basecamp and because our team reorged and, we got holidays and stuff like that, I'll be the first to admit that it was slightly, we're a little bit behind schedule trying to get our content out, but, good quality content takes time. So let's pop over here really quick and just kind of understand, whoa, I didn't want to go into the reception counter. That doesn't help me. I wanted to kind of look at it from a distance. So I'm going to just pretend that this sort of aligns with the edge, although I think it's a little bit shorter. You can see that this is basically it's two levels or two layers, and there's a structural support and there is a neon tubing. So this will be fun. let's model that, and then we're going to spend a few minutes looking at the final product, and then Matt, we're going to close this out. So I'm going to start by, and please Matt, interrupt me at any point in time if a question comes in, because I definitely want to make sure anything that the viewers have to add to this process is reflected.
Oh, I'm not afraid to interrupt you.
I know.
This stream so far has shown that. But yeah, RT Cool says he's dying for more V-Ray learning materials. Looking forward to it. So cool.
I'm going to pretend like these are about a foot from each other, and I'm going to cheat and just scale this one. And then just because I feel like, oh, maybe it's not a foot, maybe it's more like 6 inches. Yeah. So what I did was just basically made a rectangle, offset it, pushed the inside out, so I have just the frame, copied the frame. And this is probably where I should have made it. Oh, I did make it a component. See, if I'm smart, if I have two of something, I go and I try to think ahead and make it a component if I know that I'm going to copy something. So in this case, like this should be a component. That was not a component. Oh, this should be a component. This one, okay, yeah, see, that's a component, right? Because I knew I was copying that. So anyway, you get it. So now the trick is if to be lazy, we could just draw the supports from here and then apply some color, or we could use a fun extension. So what I'm going to do is, let's make this a little bit more interesting. I'm going to copy this, paste it. I don't need this inner one. I just need this outer one. So I'm going to move this down to about 3 inches down. And I don't need this inner one, so delete that. And the reason why is because I'm going to use the follow me tool. I could use an extension, but I'm going to use the follow me tool and make that 0.25, no, 0.5, 0.3. Okay, you can always change it after the fact. So I'm going to select that, and I'm going to say, oops, select that, don't select that, follow me, grab that. Oh, how did it shouldn't have done that? Is it because I placed this on?
Oh yeah.
Is that why? Should I have done it off to the side, or is that going to, or is that, oh, that's why, because it, yeah, let's try that again. Let's try that again.
Ended that, yeah, the path.
Yeah, I see. So when I copied it like that, okay, so let's try that again. Yeah, what I wanted was that corner. So that's kind of the neon light. And if this framing feels a little too thick, I might come in here and say, what would I do? What's the best way to do that? Probably just to select, oh, I see. An easy way to do that would be to come in and create this face, offset this maybe by 1 inch, and then delete that and push this down by 2. If I get any straight lines, that's okay. So what I did there is I bring that down by 0.5. So the nice thing is that even if I drew this framing, you're not locked to it, right? It was pretty easy to be like, oh, let's actually cut that in size by half. I probably could have, yeah, the problem with just doing a straight scale wouldn't have worked because I wanted to make it both thinner and I wanted to make it thinner all around proportionally. So was that blue on the top, or was that was blue on the top and white on the bottom? So we're going to grab a nice pretty blue. And we're going to make that blue and then a little light gray for our frame. And then what I'm going to do is make that a component. Actually, I don't want to apply color to this one. Oh, let's see. Let's try this. Okay, so this is a fun little trick here. I'm going to make the tube a component. So here's my thing is that I want to copy this tube to this. I want it twice. So I want the upper one and I want the lower one. But the problem is I built this outside of this component. So if I delete that and go into the frame and paste that in place, I now have the tube in both components. But if I wanted it outside of the component, but I just wanted it placed underneath the component, I could go in, copy that, paste it in place, come over here, copy that, delete it, paste in place. And that's just my trick on how I get information, how I can move information from one place to another, is I actually use components. I kind of cheat and I say I'm going to place it into that component so that way it like teleports, and then I go in and I delete it. So it's kind of a little fun trick there.
Yeah, I like it. That's a good tip.
Yeah, so this one's tricky. I'm going to turn my ceiling on for this because I definitely want to make sure that I'm hitting my ceiling. I don't think that I drew this at a, I don't think I drew this at a, like, I didn't place this, you know what I mean, at a certain height above. So I'm just going to,
from the ceiling,
yeah, so I need the ceiling on so I can just draw this straight until it hits. And if I was going to render this, pro tip, if you're going to render it, you have to give a line a thickness. So no matter how thin it is, even if it's a wire at like not even 1/8, 1/16 of an inch, I'd want to probably give that like maybe a 0.1 radius, and then also come over here with the follow me tool and go bing, make that a component always because there's more than one of them. And I'm going to copy that. I'm going to switch over to turn my ceiling off, switch over to parallel projection, do that. And for me, that should make it pretty easy. So I'm doing X-ray mode because I'm wanting to copy it right at that center point. I'm not even going to use the move copy. I'm going to use the stamp tool. So I'm going to hit the modifier twice, grab right at that center point, and then zoom out. This is where a space mouse would be handy. Click, and I'm still grabbing it. Click, and click. So this is where I think I can show that same technique one more time. If I take all 4 of those, copy them, delete them, and go into the component. And then what's going to happen is you're going to see that they actually show up now for that inner one. But again, that inner one, I actually want it to be a different size. So I go into that inner component, grab it, delete it. Oops, I'll just paste it. So when I start, paste that in place. And then what I would do is come over here and use the scale tool to just match it. So now what I did is I used that, these are essentially the same component. So if for some reason I wanted to change this, I can change it. It's changing it to this component, but now I have one that's short and I have one that's long. So I'm using the copy into component trick so that I can keep this a component, but I can use them at different sizes and different scales. So
gotcha. So if you change the material or something, it would be the same across and you wouldn't have to go into 2 separate components. Yeah, makes sense. Yes.
Yeah. So that's, well, we're actually at our time. So I'm going to say, I'm going to turn my section cut off. I'm going to switch. I think this is pretty good, to be honest with you, given like how much slower things go when we're talking and which is the fun of the live session, is to talk through it. But you know, it's not bad. This isn't a bad place to have gotten in this period of time. But I feel like
it looks good. I can hear everybody in the chat now.
Yeah. We haven't turned the chat audio on, so I'll.
I just unmuted him just for that one section. So
thanks. I'm gonna go ahead and pop into the finish one. So if I spent another 45 minutes, I think what I would have done is we would have put some art up on the walls. I would have just populated, you know, I would have built this wood cabinet and populated some elements I found on the 3D warehouse. Oh, my working scene. Let's see here. Okay, update. So you can see I have my working scene set up. I have my color by tag scene set up. So this is all scenes that I set up because like when I'm drafting, I draft in X-ray mode. When I want to check to make sure my tags are correctly, I go to CBT, which stands for color by tag. So I can double check all of those things. You can see I still have my 2D symbols on. So if I wanted to go to floor plan, the cool thing about going to the floor plan is that you'll notice that I've actually turned my furniture 3D tags off. So here they are. Why is my hidden geometry not? Okay. So here they are with like all their beautiful detail. And, but that's too much detail in this case. What I want to do is I'm using just those 2D symbols when I switch to plan view. So it's kind of cool because it's kind of like a hybrid. So some things are the custom things that I built. I leave, I don't need a CAD block. I didn't have a CAD block for this, but all this off the shelf spec furniture, I have CAD blocks for. So it's kind of like when I go to plan view, it's kind of like a hybrid between 2D and 3D. So there's my plan view. Looks great. It's ready for me to put dimensions and callouts and labels and a scale bar on. You'll also notice that I do have a 2D symbol for doors, which is different from the 3D symbol. The 3D symbol has all this latch details and things that I maybe don't necessarily need or want to show in plan view. So there's my plan view. And just to kind of go through the motions, I've got an elevation, so I can look at it looking this way, and I can draw over the top or add some notes. I have another elevation looking the long elevation, and I have each elevation cut. So you'll notice that those are just section cuts. The elevations are just section cuts. And then the last thing I have in my final view is this perspective. And one thing that's kind of cool with this one, this is what I wanted to kind of show you, is that under scenes, I created an alternative layout, and this alternative layout should not have camera. Let's see, does it work? It's been so long since I've opened this file. So what I've done is I've created an alternative layout, and I just basically flipped my design. So I have two versions of all my furnishings. And so one of them I have Alt 1 turned on. If I open my tags, you can see Alt 1 is turned on, Alt 2 is turned off, and then Alt 2 is here. So if I flipped around to my different perspectives, I can go in and just go Alt 1. I can show what Alt 1 and Alt 2 look like. So I can flip back and forth between those alts, which is kind of cool, because if I wanted to, again, show my client and say, well, do you want the lounge over here or do you want it next to reception? I could just in real time click Alt 1, Alt 2. So just kind of taking it to the next level. Once the furnishings are in, it's really for me thinking about how I wanted to sort of display this information and sort of how I want to communicate it. So
yeah, totally. It's nice for presentation. It feels a lot more kind of professional and, snappy than, okay, let me go through this sub menu and, turn this tag on and off or whatever. Just flipping between the scenes and automatically switches is really nice. And I feel like the client would be like, wow, you're pro.
I feel like this for me is really important, because it's sort of like a nice way to say, for them to really quickly in the model say, yeah, actually, the bookcase doesn't work over there. The bookcase worked much better in this alcove. Okay, let's go back to the way we had it. Let's go back to the way we originally designed it. Even if the effort of showing an alternative, sometimes we put together alternatives as throwaways. So we show concept A, B, and C. We all know that C is the best concept, but A and B are throwaways. And the reason why is that we want the client to be the one to say, A and B, or I don't like those. It's like, well, we know you don't like them because we don't either. Yeah, it's a little design trick that we use, which is to say that, yes, we heard you, but we also, as designers, know, we want to take the client's input in, but at the same time, we also hope to know what's right. So that's why I'm saying that going through the effort of showing alternatives is not, it's not a bad thing.
Yeah, for sure. They feel like they're part of the process, but also you're steering them to the best design.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm going to switch over to I'm going to switch over to big head mode, because that's my way of saying that we're done when I get big again. Matt, do you have a sound effect for getting big or no? That was a water splash. I like that. We'll go with that. We'll go with water splash. So we're at time. I just want to wrap up by saying thanks for letting me just ramble on as I do, sharing some things that I think are useful to me. Remember, I speak from my experience. I also like to say that, as long as you learn one new thing, if you walked away from this session and you said, I didn't learn a single thing new, well, then either you are the best modeler in the world, or I'm not doing my job. So I hope that everyone here picked up at least one new trick. And I will wrap up by saying, Matt, I'll let you have the last word, but I'll wrap up myself by saying, make sure to come back next Friday. We do this every Friday at noon Mountain Time. I'm on the West Coast, a little bit earlier for me. And also don't forget to check out our YouTube channel for our other content beyond the live streams. We love it when you join us here, but we love it even more when we see you on campus and we see you in YouTube, and at some point in the hopefully not too distant future, see you in person at our next Space Camp. So Matt, anything you want to say to our fine friends other than just thanks for participating and following along with us here today?
Yeah, no, good words. Yeah, definitely echo what you said. Thanks for watching. I will say that if you missed the beginning and didn't see the top of the bar there, Eric is working in SketchUp Pro 2023, so that did launch. So if you already have a SketchUp subscription, you can log into sketchup.com and get through the account management. You can download it through there. If you do not have SketchUp and you want to give it a shot, there's a 30-day trial. If you go to sketchup.com/download, so you can get the brand new version. Yeah, I want to say also next week on SketchUp Live, it's going to be Aaron and Jody coming at you. And I believe, hopefully he doesn't make a liar out of me, but I believe he's doing there's like a conceptual apartment building that the image was going around for in India. Every balcony has a pool. It's a very kind of organically shaped building. I don't know. It looks really cool.
Oh yeah, I saw a picture of that. That's going to be kind of cool. I have to watch that one too.
How would you describe that shape? What is that building shaped like?
I don't even know. I have to go back and look at it again. I don't want to say wrong. I don't know if it's parabolic or if it's yeah. I have to look at it again. Sorry.
Parabolic, yeah.
It's interesting. It's going to be a challenge. Aaron likes those challenges. I play it safe by just moving furniture around. He's like, I'm going to do this crazy building, and so go big or go home. I think that's our motto here.
But yeah, totally. So that should be a fun stream next week. But yeah, no, thank you, Eric. That was a really cool and informative presentation. I definitely learned a lot, and look how much you got done in just 2 hours. So if you want to also, like he said, get the full training, the full in-depth, all the files and everything, the link is in the description for that, for the campus course that uses the same model and stuff, but like you said, goes into much more. Yeah, here it is, right behind your big head mode right now. So
yeah. Oh yeah. So well,
yes.
I'm not going to go small. I'm just blocking it. That's okay because we're out. But there it is.
Yeah, that's all good. But yeah, like you said, 100% free and 100% curated by the SketchUp team. So that's the official training for commercial interiors, and it's great.
And we'll see you soon back on campus for V-Ray next week when that one goes live. So on that note, I'm going to end on a high note with some funky outro music. So thanks everyone. See you next week.
Have a great weekend. Bye.